Well, welcome back to the Kansas City Commercial Real Estate Market Pulse, sponsored by Midwest Commercial Real Estate Advisors. If you're here in the Kansas City area, you are enjoying some beautiful sunshine on this November 5th day. We're excited because this is episode 41 of the show. I'm very pumped about our guest here today, and I am excited to introduce him in just one second. But I always like to go on a couple little bit rants, right before we get started. And the first rant I'm going to go on is, just because the weather is beautiful or the weather is bad, depending on the day, it shouldn't impact the way that you are feeling and the way that your outlook is. And I know you need to get some sunshine, and I understand that. But I can't tell you how many times over the past week or so I have had a conversation where people have just been complaining about the cold weather. It's like, you live in the Midwest. You should recognize that it's going to be cold. We cannot control that. What we can control is our response. And so there was a quote that I heard from Darren Hardy. I'm rereading the book, The Compound Effect. And his quote was just really, it stood out to me, right? It says, "Don't be a victim of your circumstances. Instead, be the architect of your responses. Control your emotions, control your life." And today we're going to be talking to an ex-military guy who I know buys into that methodology himself as well, Andy Janssen. I'm going to introduce Andy in just a moment. So thank you for enjoying my, or not enjoying my rant, but a couple things for everyone listening in. We are live here on YouTube. We are live here on LinkedIn. I'm trying to keep the mic really close to my mouth because I've been listening to my episodes. Even though I have this really expensive mic, if I sway from it, you can kind of hear the echo here, and I'm in a big office. So I'm going to try to keep it right up in front. But if you have questions today, comments, please do drop them in the box. We are monitoring those on a regular basis. And if I miss something, KD on the team definitely make sure that it gets back to me, because I have my chat up, I've got the LinkedIn up, I've got the YouTube up. We're good to go. So excited to launch into today's episode. This is our team here at our company, Midwest Commercial Real Estate Advisors. And we are full service commercial real estate brokerage, leasing, investment sales, owner occupant sales. And we're representing a lot of buyers right now doing 1031 exchanges. We'll be bringing you guys a Q3 market update. I think it's some of the best research that we have done in the last 12 months. And it really does help to understand kind of what is happening in commercial real estate. Proud to say that the industry is bouncing back with $125 billion of sales, and that's likely to be revised up in Q3. So transaction volumes tracking in the right way. 42 billion of that was in September alone. So very excited about that, and the future of transaction volumes continue to normalize here in Kansas City. So if you're interested in talking to one of our team members, please do reach out to us. I'm very excited to talk with you. So today's guest knows a thing or two about discipline, about precision, about purpose. From the Air Force pilot to a certified financial planner, Andy Janssen has built a financial approach rooted in his military background, something that he calls the financial flight plan. And I'm excited about that because I have learned so much from the military. I have learned so much from military personnel, retired and active. And I was just listening and sent over my favorite talk of all time from Admiral William McRaven called Make Your Bed. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Andy. I listen to it on a weekly basis, and it just never gets old. Reading his new book, Conquering Crisis, anything that guy puts out, Wisdom from the Bullfrog, Make Your Bed, I'm definitely going to read. But Andy, thank you for joining us, man. How are you today?
Hey, Logan. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Doing great, and appreciate the opportunity to just come on and talk with you. And I reached out to you on LinkedIn because I work with clients all over the country, but I've got some that want to, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but just be a little bit better diversified. And I know what you do, but it's not in my bailiwick. So that's how you and I met, just got together and started chatting so I can learn a little bit more about commercial real estate. So, but yeah, no, doing great and appreciate the chance to kind of come on and talk.
Yeah. Well, let's kick this thing off with your story, right? So, talk to us a little bit about walking us through your journey, from flying missions to building financial strategies. How did your time in the Air Force shape your approach to planning and leadership and decision making? Would love to hear your story and your journey.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I grew up flying. So I've always had a love of flying. Wanted to find, okay, how do I do this in the most or least expensive way to me?
Yeah.
How do I become a pilot without getting into a ton of debt? My brother became a pilot, went through this kind of the standard way people do it, and wound up with loans of in the excess of $100,000. So I didn't want to do that. So I looked at other options and decided, well, I'm going to join the Air Force and try to get to pilot training. Worked out. I wound up going to pilot training back in 1999, and two great things happened. I learned to fly, and then I actually met my wife. So she was in pilot training as well. So we both flew that plane that you see there on the screen, the C-130.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not familiar, I think, of course, every pilot's going to say this, but greatest plane in the world. It's kind of like flying a Jeep. So it's rugged, fun to fly. We'd fly formation. We fly 300 feet off the ground, going, 350 knots, land on dirt runways,
Wow.
just all that fun stuff that, well, I think it's fun, but, and just a brief story, just to give you a glimpse into what we do in the C-130. So after 9/11, so my wife and I became C-130 pilots basically right before 9/11 happened. So,
yeah.
And we're co-pilots at the time, so we're not in charge of the plane, but
okay.
9/11 happens and we deploy over to the Middle East and are flying into Afghanistan. And one of the missions that really kind of shows you what the C-130 does is go into extremely small dirt runways and resupply the Army or Marines or whoever's there. And this one that we're going into was 60 feet wide. So that's barely bigger than a city street in width. And then it was 3,000 feet long. And then on either side of the runway, so there's a creek that was about a 20-foot drop off that wrapped around the runway. So on the front end and the back end, there's a drop off about 20 feet. So if you land short or land long, you're going in the creek. So that's the stuff that's fun and challenging, that we do in the C-130. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but that's the fun
stuff. Well, let's pause there. So how did the Air Force, or did they, prep you to be able to manage some of those stressful situations, right? I mean, you've got to operate under an immense amount of stress during that period of time. Did they equip you with that, or did they kind of just say, hey, this is trial, just by not error, but like you just getting the reps in, right? Like, how did they put you through that stress or prepare you for that?
No, it's a good question. So, and that's one reason why I think the military does the greatest job of preparing pilots, is because of the stress they put you under.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, when I was in pilot training, it was a very regular circumstance where we'd be up flying, and the instructor, who's there to basically make your life hell,
right,
would reach over and pull one of the engines back to idle, so you just completely lose the engine, and at times even shut the engine down, literally shut it down in air, so you're just operating on one. In the civilian world, they just don't do that as much.
No.
And so they put us through situations that you just get used to the stress and used to just whatever is going to come up, you're ready for, right? So they really prepare us for any kind of emergency situation that could happen. And landing on a short runway, it's not the first time we've done it, right? I mean, we do that many times before we deploy and do it for real, and even landing on dirt runways stateside. So
yeah, and I think that you guys have some incredible simulators as well that throw everything at you, right? And obviously, it's not full on, the same risk, but you do have to pass those simulations to be able to keep flying. My father-in-law is an ex-Air Force pilot. I believe he was flying the KC-10s. Is that right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, KC-10, which they retired that plane now, but he's now a United pilot, and they still have to continue on with all of their simulations and things like that. So, yeah, my son is 5 years old, and he always asks me, Daddy, what should I do when I grow up? And one of the things that I continue to mention to him is, if you can get in, maybe you'll play some a sport somewhere, maybe not, that's okay, but like if you can get into one of the military schools, I think that would be really good. I mean, some of the best people that I know have either gone to one of the academies or were in the military, right? And so I know that for him, having some guardrails and having some discipline is going to be really important. And so it is one of the things that I always say. It's like, join the military. We're going to school. You become a priest if that's what you're called to do, right? But military is always up there. And I'm curious, with your children now, do they have an interest in your history of serving our country, and especially since your wife as well, we're both military backgrounds, is that something you speak to your children about?
We do, and actually, we actually took them both out to the Air Force Academy and visited, because we're not that far away, and we've at least introduced them to flying. So my older son, I've got a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. And we've taken them both to get flight lessons just to see, if they have any interest. Right now, the older one does not want to join the military because he has an idea of where he wants to live, and he doesn't want to move around,
Sure.
like we did for 20 years. The younger one is, TBD. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a question coming in here. We've got up on the screen, Bronze Star recipient. So for those that aren't familiar with what that is, maybe describe, what the Bronze Star is, and how did you come across being able to be the recipient of that?
Yeah, sure. So there is an important distinction with Bronze Star. So there's Bronze Star with Valor, which is not what I have. So that's for, no kidding, combat. So
sure.
As and as a Air Force guy in a C-130 that doesn't have guns, we don't get into that situation very much. So a Bronze Star without Valor is for other situations that, you've just done something that they determine is big enough to earn that award.
Absolutely.
And in my case, I deployed to Afghanistan for a year and was the direct liaison to an Afghan Air Force colonel, who our mission was to try to make it simple, is build an Afghan capability on the Air Force side to call in airstrikes from their Air Force, which no longer exists. But so I spent a year over there developing that capability, and that's how I earned the Bronze Star.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Hey, do have a question for you. This is from me. One of my favorite Air Force guys is probably not as known as, Admiral William McRaven, but he has had a huge impact on my life. I've gotten to meet Robert Cujo Teschner multiple times, and he wrote a book called Debrief to Win. He was a fighter pilot, and have you read his book? Or are you familiar with Cujo?
No, unfortunately, no. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He's a great guy, incredible speaker. And the whole idea is being able to do these debriefs, which the Air Force, he was kind of the guy that brought in this methodology of doing these debriefs to make sure that you can win, right? And you can debrief a situation before you go into it, right? Another one that I have my book on my desk here is obviously Jocko Willink. I've been able to meet him in person as well. Very big on doing these debriefs and these plannings, right? And Dwight D. Eisenhower, talked about, look, planning is essential, because frankly, nothing ever goes to plan. And so the process of planning is the most important thing, because you need to have those contingencies. And you have said that, financial success is not about luck. It's about having a financial flight plan, right? And so what does that mean for you in practical terms, right? So let's think about this and break this down, right? And I love this flight plan because it's something that I can react to and see, right? You got objectives and the pre-flight checklist. Another Air Force guy, Seth Wilson, wrote a book. I forget his book. He's a local Kansas City guy, and he was all about checklists. So I was so excited to see this kind of in your flight plan, your financial flight plan. But can you explain what this is and how it kind of simplifies the financial decision-making process?
Yeah. So let me give just a brief background to kind of how I came up with this and why I got there. So, and a real quick flying story, which kind of goes to show why I did it. So, I was deployed back when, after 9/11, after Afghanistan was going on, when we were going to go into Iraq next. Okay. And we were deployed to Qatar, which is on the Saudi Peninsula. And we were one of the first non-combat aircraft to go into Baghdad. And we didn't know what we were getting into. We obviously, our fighters and bombers had taken out a lot of the capability of the Iraqi military, but you don't know what's out there. And you don't know if guys are going to be shooting guns at you, surface to air missiles, whatever. So we did this flight, and we worked with our mission planning team. We worked with Intel to find out where possibly the bad guys are, planned the flight, and we flew from Kuwait to Baghdad at about 200 feet off the ground, going 350-ish knots at night on NVGs, no lights on the plane. Right?
Wow.
So by the time anybody on the ground saw us or heard us, we were past them.
Yep.
So that went great. But like you said, your planning is great until something happens. So we got all the way to Baghdad, no problem. Landed, I don't remember what time it was, but 3 a.m. maybe. And the time that we're the most vulnerable is on the ground. And they may not see us, but they definitely hear us. So we landed, taxied clear, and parked. And literally within a couple minutes of us parking, right off the nose of the aircraft, it comes in a rocket attack. Wow. And just rockets are hitting the ground and blowing up. And I mean, it looks like literally fireworks. And we cut the engines and run to a bunker. Long story short, everybody's fine. But when I moved to Kansas City years later, and I'm now in my 40s, and I'm looking at retirement, and I'm thinking, man, I don't really know if I'm ready. So back at that time, I listened to Dave Ramsey a lot, the no debt guy. And he had a thing where, hey, let us know, we'll hook you up with a financial planner. I was like, okay, great, let's do that. So my wife and I interviewed 3 different financial planners. And honestly, it was very underwhelming. There seemed to be no plan. It was, give us money, we'll rebalance your portfolio. And that's about it.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this doesn't seem right. So fast forward to, I just became a financial advisor myself. And even as a financial advisor, there's great financial advisors out there, believe me. There's great people that I work with. But even as a financial advisor, I run into guys all the time that's all they want to do is get some money, rebalance, and go play golf. That's about it.
Sure.
But I look at financial planning the same way I looked at my flights, which is I'm going to start from the objective and work back. What is our objective? For me, that's who are my clients. So build a relationship, find out what their goals, dreams, maybe fears are, get to know them so that we can figure out, okay, where do you want to be and what are the maybe things that are getting in the way and what tools do we have to get you where you want to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I start. And, one of the principles I work off of is, have you ever heard of the Pareto principle?
Absolutely. Live by it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. So, I use it in the military too. So if you're not familiar, it's kind of the principle of 20% of the people do the majority of the work, or if you're in the top 20%, if you're just doing your job and doing it well, you're easily in the top 20% of whatever you do. And if I do a good job for my clients and have a plan, I'm going to be in the top 20%. And if I do it even better than that, and part of what I've done to do that is get my CFP, so Certified Financial Planner, I'm probably going to be top 5%, right? So my approach to financial planning, like you have there on the screen, learn about my clients. That's the mission and objectives. So build a relationship, not just exchange money, and then really do that pre-flight. So for me, pre-flight is to get off the ground. You've got to have your base in a good order. So for me, that's cash and debt. All right. So where are we at with cash and debt? All right. Just get everything settled so that you can use those tools available to you, which is your engine or whatever you're using as your investments. And then we move to the navigation part of the flight, which is using all those tools, reducing taxes, getting the right tools in place for growing your wealth, all that kind of thing. And then finally, with maintain altitude, that's investing and adjusting, but also looking at what kind of risks are out there. And for most people, that's where they really don't know what to do with estate planning or insurance and that kind of stuff. So what I'd like to kind of focus on, if it's okay with you, Logan, is something that may be helpful for your listeners, is more on the navigation and maintaining altitude side, which is what do we use as our tools to get ahead?
Yes.
And might be useful for most of the people that are listening. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Yes.
So let me hit on a few of those. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about what most people do for their investments. And what I work with are obviously the standard stuff you've heard of: IRAs, 401ks, that kind of thing. Obviously, what you work with is another aspect of that, which is why I approached you, because I want to be diversified. But what I work with clients on that a lot of people, appreciate is when we look at just standard investing, whether you have an IRA or you're just investing by yourself in a taxable account, we can do that as well, but with strategy, right? And if you just take, for example, the S&P 500. So most people compare their portfolio against the S&P 500. Well, you've got 500 stocks, 500 companies that are in that fund, right? And as you can imagine, there's some that are doing great, some that are not doing so well. Well, if you're looking at buying properties in commercial real estate, would you want to hold all 500 if some of them were not performers? Obviously not, right?
Mm-mm.
You want to hold the ones that are performing. Well, there's a company that I use. They're actually here in Kansas City. It's called Avantis, and they're ETF. It's American Century. You probably heard of them, but
Yes.
their funds called Avantis. Okay, and their approach is looking at the stock market, but keeping the companies and stocks that have really good cash flow and performance, and not using so much of the ones that are on the lower side. So if you look at the average return for most people, what they get for just say large company stocks, it's around 12% per year. With Avantis for large company stocks, it's around 16.
Mm.
So we can give you, a beta of about 4% just by using the right kind of investment, right? So that's one thing that I do. Another thing that, if you have people that have their own companies that are listening, another thing I do is, really look at the tool you're using for your company. So your 401k, for instance.
Sure.
Some of you may use simple IRAs or stuff like that. To give you an example, a real example here in Kansas City, I've got a client who is doing his own 401k. He has maybe 5 or 6 employees, pretty small, but he makes really good money. But he wasn't maximizing his 401k. And then on top of that, we added a cash balance plan to it so that he could put away another $300,000 a year into his, in essence, 401k. And all of that's pre-tax. So he's now saving, because he's in a high tax bracket, about $100,000 a year in taxes, and postponing that till retirement, when his tax rate will come down and he can now draw from those funds at a better tax rate. So, there's just other tools out there for small business owners that we can use as well. Another one, which I use a lot with my clients who are high income earners, are called private accounts. Have you ever heard of those, Logan?
No.
No. So a private account, or it's also called an SMA, or separately managed account. It's an account that we use for brokerage accounts, so taxable accounts. And in essence, it's a tax efficient way to grow your money in an account that's just for you. Okay. So it's not an ETF. You own a bunch of individual stocks that's run by us, that grows more tax efficiently than if you were just buying stocks on your own. And the way they do that is, I won't bore you to death with the details, but something called tax loss harvesting. So as certain stocks are down in that account, we sell them, buy something else, take the loss. But it's just a way to grow your taxable account at a more efficient rate.
Yeah.
Cool tool that a lot of people don't know about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another tool that we use is, and a lot of people, you probably heard of this. Maybe you're doing one, a 529 for your kids. Are you doing that?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So 529 is a great tool, but a lot of people don't realize other things you can do with them. So, for instance, our kids go to a private school, but we want to save for college for them at the same time. So I've got a 529 for both my boys. They're just growing for college. But I have a 529 for myself and one for my wife, because we get a tax deduction in Kansas of up to $6,000 a year for putting money in there. So we do $6,000 each. Then we transfer it to our boys and use that to pay for the private school.
Okay.
So, it's not a game changer, but it's, more tax efficient way to pay for their school now. And, take advantage of that tax break.
Yeah.
The other thing with 529s, which a lot of people don't realize, is the IRS, or the Congress actually made a new rule that you can roll over some money from 529s to Roth IRAs down the road. So it's just another way to save, for retirement.
Yeah.
So
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say the audience here is going to love any ideas and tools to be able to save on taxes. That's, mostly brokers and developers and real estate investors. That's definitely front and center for them for sure. So I'm sure that's welcome news for them to be able to utilize. And, I that's very interesting because, we send our kids to private school as well. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners here do. So that's a great strategy to be able to implement in a more efficient way to be able to do that. So I appreciate you sharing that. That is news to me, and that is a new tool that I have not heard about.
Yeah, it's a great tool, and like I said, it's not going to be a game changer. For small business owners, really the 401k side is the game changer. Just in terms of tax savings, there's some other things we can do too. If for people who are making a lot of money and need something else besides 401k or IRAs, there's something called a life insurance retirement plan, which is also it can be a game changer for folks. It's a way to grow tax-free and pull the money out tax-free down the line. There's a lot of ideas, right? And I think that's where I set myself apart, is just I get into the weeds on all this stuff to bring it to my clients.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
I mean, you're in the same business as I am. We're both in the information and relationship business, right? And the more information that we can have, for me, it's, the trend is your friend. And I need to be on the front lines, understanding what's going on in commercial real estate. And that's why we have this show. You're in the know in regards to all these different tools that can be valuable to your clients, because most people are not going to take the time to go evaluate that for themselves. So we're in, very similar scenarios, right? Advising people to make certain decisions, but you have to have that information in a way that's clear, concise, and compelling for them to actually go act upon. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, actually Vanguard did a study talking about, okay, what benefit is there for having an advisor, and just the standard advisor. So not somebody who does it better, not using the Pareto principle, right? But just a standard advisor. And what they found was the average person earns about 3% more annually than not working with an advisor. But the interesting part was that wasn't necessarily due to them picking better, funds or stocks.
Right.
It's more what you do and when you do it. And a real brief story on that, which happened this last year. Do you remember in April with Liberation Day, right? Tariffs and the stock market did that number?
Absolutely.
So I have two clients who behaved differently. And in essence, I'm a behavior coach when it comes to money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had one client, very wealthy, sitting on a ton of cash. I don't know exactly how much, because it's not all here, but probably north of $1 million. And he's got multiple million with me. And he got very nervous. And he called me and was like, Andy, what are we going to do here? And we were ready. We were prepared. I'm always prepared for, the what if. And I tried to coach him through it. And I said, hey, okay, look, this is how many times the market drops like this in history. We get at least two 5% drops annually on average.
Okay.
Every 18 months on average, we get a 10% drop. So it's nothing new. So I tried to coach him through it and say, hey, this is actually where you want to buy. We've got some stocks that are really attractively priced right now. He didn't want to do it though. He let me use some of our money that we already had and shift it, but he didn't really want to go, not all in, but get a little bit aggressive. Okay. But we did shift some things around. And right now the market is up about 16%. His portfolio is up about 22. Okay. So he's doing well.
Yeah.
Another client, a retired Army couple, same thing, called me very nervous. And I said, hey, this is why we've got some money set aside. You guys are fine. We've got a long time till you're retiring. Don't stress. That we're going to have these drops every few years. We're ready for it. If you want and you're comfortable, let's buy with the money we have on the side. And they said, okay, let's do it. Their portfolio as of right now is up 33%.
Wow.
Double
so 11 percentage points.
Yeah. Double the market for just doing a strategy. And Logan, that's not doing, crypto or anything. I'm not doing, day trading. I'm not doing what else? Option trading. I mean, that's like buying Amazon and Apple and whatever when it was low. That's it.
Right.
It's nothing cosmic. So that's kind of what I bring to the table. And, when we look at how we can do better, it's just using the right tools that we have available to us, which is why I contacted you, because one of the things I tell my clients, I'm not as familiar with commercial real estate, which is why I talk to you. One thing I tell my clients all the time, though, is that their home is an investment, and actually a tax-free investment, tax-free growth. It's great. It acts like a buffer against the market.
Right.
So very often I have clients tell me that I'm one of the first people they've heard in terms of financial advisors that tells them to do other stuff, pay off your house or get rid of your debt instead of investing more, or, introduce them to Logan to talk commercial real estate. Because I know diversification is one of the biggest ways to get ahead. If you're all in stocks or you're all in maybe real estate, if something happens in that arena, you're taking all the hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want my clients to be diversified and look at other areas like you have up here on the screen.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that diversification is key, right? And I think that also diversification can be very complicated for people because you look at startups and others and collectibles and crypto and stocks and real estate, and like, how the heck do you navigate all of that? Well, I had a mentor one time say, hey, diversification is good. Once you are rich, diversification is great, but like, you don't need to be diversifying into trying to be an expert on all of these things, right? Like, go be the expert in your specific niche. And that was like a game changer for me because I was watching, Bitcoin and crypto and all of this stuff. And, it's like, man, I had the fear of missing out, right? It's like, but what do I know? It's not that. It's real estate, and it's, working, with my own diversified portfolio in, stocks and bonds and things like that. And so I think it can be also intimidating because people are like, well, I need to be expert in all of this. Actually, and I tell people this a lot when they want to get into real estate. It's like, you can be passive, you can be active, you can do all of these different things. You can buy, real estate investment trusts, you can buy shares of that, so there's so many different ways to kind of get into it. But like, you shouldn't try to be an expert in all these things. You should be the expert at what you're great at and what you're focused on, so that you are so valuable that then you can call Andy and say, hey, I'm ready to be extremely diversified. Let's go make some money and have some fun in all these things. So I think it's kind of a two-pronged approach there, or at least a double-edged sword in regards to that, because it can be confusing for a lot of people. Do you find that when you're talking to your clients?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, and you've probably seen this in real estate, I don't know, but so I have a buddy I served with, and he and his wife are retired military, and they have very good paying jobs now. So they're, between the two of them, they're making, I don't know, $500,000 or $600,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he called me and he said, Andy, I need help. I've been investing on my own, basically looking at Yahoo and whatever.
Oh yeah.
And he lost over $300,000 on one stock.
Ouch. Jeez.
Yeah, that's an ouch.
Yeah, that's a big ouch.
And, and then another guy who's a client, I didn't know him in the military, but he's a retired pilot, now flies for FedEx, and similar situation. He was just following, YouTube and Yahoo and whatever.
Yeah.
And when it's going great, it's going great. But then all of a sudden you put a lot of money in something, and he also was down, I think he was over 400,000. So, so now they're with me, right?
Yeah, and they probably both sold, right? And so then it's like now you've really locked that in,
Right.
and that's the other thing that I think that you mentioned previously, with your discipline and the long-term outlook, like you can be almost a behavior coach for these individuals, because I often say that we've moved from information asymmetry, where a certain group of individuals or corporations have the information, to information parity, where everybody has access to it, which causes all other kinds of problems, to where we're at now, I think, which is information overload, and nobody knows what the hell to believe or to go act on. And you've got a million different gurus telling you, and ads coming at you saying, hey, you follow my system, we're going to day trade, I'm going to make you, 100% on your money. That is a great way for that person to build up their coaching program and their framework to sell to you, for you to then go lose money, because you make these decisions and then things happen. You don't know the history of the market, that we have 2 annual drops of 5% and whatever on the 10% that you said, which Andy, and you can coach people through that. And so then they go sell, when they're down, and now they've locked those losses in, right? I mean, I think that's important to keep in mind. And that's what to me, that's what you're paying for in regards to an advisor, right? It's like, yes, the strategy is important. We need to have our checklist. We need to have an objective, the mission. But like, also, we got to stick to the plan, right? I think that is so important, right? We got to build habits so we can execute, debrief, and adjust, right? I think that's so paramount for people to remember.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, my CFP study, when I did that last year, hardest test I've ever taken.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how long, 7-hour test, I think.
Wow.
Crazy. It harder test than I've taken in college or the military, hands down. And we go over everything, I mean, we study in depth, insurance, taxes, everything.
Yeah.
But I still use my go-to guy for insurance, because he's been doing this for 40 years.
Yes.
Right. And I am not going to become an expert at commercial real estate. I don't want to be. I don't have the time. I need to concentrate on what I do best. Right. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Andy, this has been wonderful. I'm going to get into my favorite segment here for you, because this is one thing where I get to learn a lot about people. But before we do, we did have we had 3 questions come in, and they're all kind of like around the same topic, which is, what is the main blind spot and roadblock that you see when working with clients that causes them, to take missteps? Or, what's that? There was kind of 3 different variations of that, but like, what should somebody avoid, I guess, is what they're asking, in regards to their financial futures.
Yeah. Oh man, that could be a very long answer. I'll try to make it concise. One would actually be kind of related to a question you have on the screen, which is, take control of your money, get out of debt, and get your money working for you.
Yes.
And then get on a plan. Okay. I would say one of the best things, I was very lucky with who I married. She's a saver. I'm a spender. We got on a plan early and just consistently put money away. Right. And obviously I realize this sounds good for me, but get an advisor. If you don't talk to me, fine, get an advisor though, because we have done well but I would have done things far differently had I known what I know now 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I guess that's my broad answer without going off for the next 10 minutes.
So this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, but like, would you say that it's smart for people? Because I have a lot of buddies who are financial planners. Is it important for a financial planner to have been through some cycles and had done some investing themselves, and are a CFP? And I know we talked about Pareto's principle, but as people are kind of selecting their financial advisors, is it important for them to have been in the market? Because I always say, or I've always heard that it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So similar for advisors and CFPs, like you did the work to get that designation. That's not easy to do. And I think financial advisory is a position where a lot of people go into, right? But like, how important is it for the tenure, in that space, right? You said your insurance guy, been doing it for 40 years, right? I've got one hand here, two hands here on how many people I know that are in insurance, right? That I could refer somebody to, right? So I'm just curious on your response to that.
Well, I don't think it's absolutely necessary, because you could get somebody who's just very sharp and studies really well, right? And makes wise decisions. But it's hard to replace experience.
Yeah.
Very hard to replace experience. And my wife and I started investing in 2000. So we went through, the dot-com bubble. We went through the drop after 9/11. We went through the teens where we had big drops, COVID and 2022. So when you've seen this stuff and you've seen people jump on bandwagons with, I don't know how many guys I've met in the military who have sworn they're going to be millionaires from doing option trading or whatever, and then they're not millionaires. I think that definitely makes a difference. I know that's kind of self-serving, but yeah, I think it does.
Well, I would agree. Okay. Well, Katie, in her marvelous creative mind, she's, this usually says quick takes with Andy or the guest, but now it's quick take off, and we got a plane there. So I see you, Katie. Nice job on the graphics. You guys on Spotify, you can be watching the video, so make sure to go over there, click over to the video, and you'll see Andy's handsome face and my big old ogre face here on the screen. But hey, favorite book and your favorite podcast. Doesn't have to be of all time, but like right now, all time, whatever you would recommend for people to kind of read.
So, favorite podcast, man. Well, I'll tell you, I listen to a podcast every day just to keep current with what the news is.
Yeah.
It's called Morning Wire. It's from the Daily Wire folks.
Yep.
So I use that just to keep up. Other than that, for podcasts, I grew up on the mission field. My parents were missionaries. So I really love anything that's, religious podcast or apologetics. I love talking about that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Yeah.
And then favorite book, I'm going to forget the name of it, but they made a movie out of it that, where the army goes into, I think, Mogadishu, and tries to rescue some downed helicopter pilots.
Okay.
I'll try to remember it before we get off, but incredible movie, incredible book.
It's not Hacksaw Ridge, is it?
No, it's
okay.
It's not World War I, II, or anything like that. It's more modern, and I think it's Mogadishu that we send people into. I'll try to think of the name of it before we get off. But
okay, yeah, awesome. All right, well, we've kind of already talked about. Well, which answer did you already answer? Was it the best financial advice, or was it one financial bad habit that you see too often?
Well, I think it's both.
Yeah,
it's get out of debt, because debt just holds you down.
It does.
Now, obviously, there's some caveats to that. So, I've got a home loan. So there's some caveats to that, and with real estate, I would have some caveats with that as well. But
Sure.
Just
You're
personal,
talking about the debt that Dave Ramsey talks about,
right?
though.
Personal debt.
That's right.
Just holding you down, and then get on a plan. And if anybody's interested in talking to me about a plan, even just talking, no expectations. I do that all the time. More than happy to. But yeah, get on a plan.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, finish this sentence for me. Success to you means what?
Well, success to me means living your life for God and your family.
Yeah.
And then another one that goes along with that is using your life experience in the service of others.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I love what I do, is because, and I didn't get into this, but I love investing. I love doing this kind of thing and helping people get where they want to go. But there's a lot of, my parents were scammed by a financial advisor. I can't remember if I told you that, but lost, I can't remember, like $20,000 to a bad advisor. So, I want to make a difference and be somebody that you can trust, and use the experience that I've had to help others.
Yes. Well, I think that comes through very clear in this conversation, in your service to our country, in your parents' missionary work, all of that. We do have somebody chiming in on LinkedIn. Is the novel named Black Hawk Down?
That's right. Yeah. I can't believe I couldn't remember.
There it is. All right.
Great movie, great book, obviously military related, but
all right, Bruno, definitely reach out to Andy, myself. We'll get you the financial flight plan for free. Have a consultation. Bruno got the novel and the movie right. That's a great one. Black Hawk Down. That's amazing. Andy, if people do want to reach out to you, learn more about the flight plan and what you do, point them in the right direction.
Yeah, so you can always look me up on LinkedIn, Andy Janssen on LinkedIn. And my LinkedIn page is geared more towards military, because I do a lot of seminars for military retiring. I work with, anybody really, though. And then my office number, I'll just give it out, is 913-469-0321. I'm in Kansas City, but I have clients in about 40 states. So I work with people all around the country. I do have a smaller practice. I'm about 100 clients. I'm not looking to grow a ton. Just looking for people that I like and like me, and get together and see what we can make work.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I've appreciated the introductions that you have made. I appreciate you spending the time with us here today, talking about actionable tools. I think you gave 4 or 5 different tools that I had not really heard about. So we appreciate that. Definitely look up Andy on LinkedIn. He gave out his cell phone number, his office number, so you can contact him there as well. If you have any trouble with that, reach out to me and I'll get you connected to Andy. No problem with that at all. Andy, thank you again for being here today and sharing your expertise and just sharing all your knowledge and your wisdom with our audience. It was very much appreciated.
No, thanks, Logan. I appreciate you having me on. A lot of fun, and gets me to talk about some military stories I haven't talked about in a while.
Absolutely. Yes. I love it. Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode 41 of the Kansas City Commercial Real Estate Market Pulse. If you have any questions about commercial real estate, not just here in Kansas and Missouri, but across the country, what's going on, the trends that we are seeing, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can find us there. We're plastered all over the place. Also, our website with all of our listings and all of our opportunities, www.mwcreadvisors.com. Make sure to follow the newsletter on LinkedIn. You can go to my profile, click Beyond Buildings, the Freeman Factor, join that newsletter, join over 9,000 people on that newsletter, because that is where we drop all of our information around our market pulses and everything that we are working on a regular basis. It's been a pleasure, Andy, having you here today. Thank you for sharing the time. Thank you all for tuning in. And Bruno, specifically, thank you for giving us the name of that novel and book, Black Hawk down. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
See you, Logan. Thanks.